Okay, we're live. Hi guys. So we're on part 2 of the Colonel Tom Parker thing. What I'm going to do is play it, and while it's playing, I'm going to message as many people as I can to join us. Okay, guys? So thanks a lot. And we've watched about 13 minutes of it. It's very interesting. It's well-known people around Elvis talking in hindsight about their recollections of Colonel Tom Parker and Elvis, everything that went on, the good and the bad. So pretty interesting, guys. I have watched this before about a year ago. There's even Colonel Tom Parker's girlfriend there as well, or wife, I think, maybe. I think he was married twice, wasn't he? So let's just press play and we'll go from there.
He would always let Elvis make the creative decisions. He would present it with opportunities, and Elvis would say yes or would say no. Do you want to do this movie? Do you want to do this script? Do you want to do these songs? All those creative choices were Elvis's.
Elvis had finished a picture, and I said, "What do you do next, Elvis?" And he said, "I don't know. The Colonel hasn't told me yet."
He never interfered with the creative part of Elvis. He said, "Elvis is a star. He knows exactly what he's doing. I'm not going to tell him what to sing or how to dress or how to act. He knows how to do those things. I just do the business part."
The Colonel was Elvis. If you wanted to pay respects to Elvis, you paid respects to the Colonel, and that was it. The Colonel was that great buffer. If the Colonel approved of you, everything was cool.
Oh yeah, there were always people that wanted to meet Elvis, always dignitaries and politicians that
live.
wanted to meet Elvis. Colonel just had a simple answer: no.
Remember, I'm live.
The guy was, you know, he played the homespun party. Was far from that, of course, as we know. He was brilliant.
Right,
He
love
was
you, kids.
one of the sharpest con men that I've ever run across.
Every time you'd see Colonel Parker, he'd be reaching in his pocket and sticking things in your pocket. He'd be putting a button on your lapel.
I noticed that on one side of
Thanks for joining us, guys. I'm just quickly telling everyone we're live. Obviously, Colonel Tom Parker is our topic.
the fairground, it's I like Elvis buttons, and the other side is I hate Elvis buttons. And what do you think of that, Elvis? He said, well, everyone's got an opinion, but did you look at the back? And then one of the guys turned over and said, oh, for crying out loud, Elvis Presley Enterprises, on both of them.
By the late 60s, Elvis's popularity as a box office draw was slipping, causing the studio brass to rethink his contract.
Colonel Parker thought for a moment. He said, you know, he said, you're absolutely right. My boy may not be around too much longer. Therefore, I think we ought to, since this is probably going to be his last film, we ought to double the price.
Yeah.
And he got it. He said, you started the negotiation, as I understand it, right? Colonel Parker walked out of that meeting getting twice as much as Elvis would have gotten if he'd have stayed just under the normal contract.
I was there, yes, with some of the deals that the Colonel made. He was a very shrewd bargainer. You know, he paid a lot of dues, the Colonel. Came up, you know, in the old Carney days when you really had to be on your toes every second.
Men did like Colonel because he was a strong individual and he did great business deals and he was very smart. He did a lot of things. And women, Colonel was not real warm with women.
Yeah, he was not a...
So I think it's, come on, is it well known, guys, that Joe Esposito was like that with Colonel and with Priscilla? I know you guys have strong views on this, don't you?
an approachable person. He, I didn't care for him, I guess, because he wasn't a... He was just different than everybody else on that, you know, connected with the movie. He was very standoffish.
Elvis had
a bargainer.
So look at this very rare footage of the Colonel. Tyler, just shut the door behind you, please. Look at this very rare footage of the Colonel.
You know, he paid a lot
you.
of dues, the Colonel. Came up, you know, in the old Carney days when you really had to be on your toes every second.
Men did like Colonel because he was a strong individual and he did great business deals and he was very smart. He did a lot of things. And women, Colonel was not real warm with women.
Yeah, he was not an approachable person. He, I didn't care for him, I guess, because he wasn't a... He was just different than everybody else on...
So look at him there, guys. Look at him with his old Now that is old footage, isn't it? Look at that. How old is that? He looks young there. He must be like in his 20s in that bit of footage. I don't know where they found it. That's probably been colorized, yeah?
That, connected with the movie. He was very standoffish.
Elvis had a dream, and the Colonel just cashed in. Didn't care about Elvis's dream. Cared about the cash, cared about the Colonel. And if a man's dream dies, then so does the man.
I was worried also about the Colonel. And he said, oh, my personal life is my own. The Colonel just directs my career. And of course, now we see that's not true at all. He was behind everything.
He liked to bluff people, see how scared you'd be of him. But then when you weren't, then, he said, oh, well, this is one that won't take my guff.
But once you got to know you.
So have any of you seen this? I know Joe's about to go, once he got to know you, he was all right, Guys, do you think Joe Esposito was too close to the Colonel? Did he report back to the Colonel things that Elvis got up to? These are the things that are said. I like Joe. He's one of the Memphis Mafia people that I like. I know about the racquetball stuff. So could he be trusted? And was he too close to Priscilla? What do you reckon, guys? I like him. I've spoke to his daughter, Cindy. She phoned me here for half an hour, which I always bring up every time I talk about Joe Esposito. My claim to fame is talking to his daughter, Cindy, at my house. I like Joe. I like him, but I know that many of you guys have got strong feelings about Joe Esposito.
He loved kids. He loved, he was very friendly to all our wives and girlfriends once he got to know them. Animals, loved animals. So any person that loves animals and kids has got to be, have a good heart. I mean, it's true.
Is that true? Anyone that likes animals and kids has got to have a good heart. I can think of some very famous people that had animals that were not kind people. I won't mention anything, but World War II comes to mind.
True, and Elvis loved animals and kids too, but he loved women too.
Colonel Parker.
All men love women. It's funny. Do you know what? This is something that always comes up, Oh, but he loved women too. Yeah, men love women. It's normal. Yeah, I love women. I've always loved women. Don't hold it against me. Every man I know loves women. Yeah, so women love men. You're not going to hold it against them. Why is Elvis the only one that is not allowed to fancy girls and have lots of girlfriends and to have lived a life where he had many partners? Why? All other men do. Obviously, when you get married, it's different. As soon as I got married, I calmed down. But before I got married, I was a typical single man. So was Elvis. So was Joe Esposito. So was all the rest of the gang. Yeah? So don't hold it against Elvis because he liked girls.
Played practical jokes, but never to hurt a person. I've never known him to do a joke that was harmful to the person. He was very sensitive about people's feelings. Colonel was a moonchild. They have a great sensitivity.
There were a number of cases when we're in the office and somebody would call and he would answer the phone not as Colonel Parker, but as an anonymous assistant.
I've heard this a few times, this story.
Is this Colonel Parker's office? Colonel says, yes. Who is this? This is Sam Ferguson. Oh, and he could hear her in the background talking to her friend saying, I've got Colonel Parker's office on the phone. Sam Ferguson answered the phone. Is Elvis there? No, but he just left. Hold on and I'll see if I can catch him before he gets to the elevator. And he puts the phone down and we're all sitting there just, our mouths are open. They picked up the phone and says, oh, I'm so sorry. I just missed him, but I tried. Try later.
Love it, guys, love it.
Howdy, hi, this is the Colonel. I said, Colonel, it's Red Robinson in Vancouver. Oh, yeah, Red, how are you? I said, well, Tom Moffat told me to call Elvis in the room. You just missed him. I'll never know, but to this day, I think Elvis was in the room. But
I think they've got a recording of Colonel Tom Parker doing the whole, you've just missed him. He just walked out the room. I'll go and get him from the elevator.
I recorded my conversation with the Colonel.
You know, I was wondering if it would be possible to talk to Elvis. Maybe not, but he said you're the man to call.
Gosh, I wish you'd have called about 10 minutes ago. He just left.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Just walk out of here.
One of the more amusing manifestations of Parker's sense of humor was a rather exclusive club he founded himself.
For those that don't know, the Snowman's Club was a fictitious club that the Colonel was president of, or chief potentate, I think he called himself.
Why do they keep calling him the Snowman? Tell me, why do they call him the Snowman? I don't know.
And it was strictly for anybody who was great at knowing how to BS. You became a member of Colonel Parker's Snowman's Club.
Colonel was the most high potentate of the Snowman's League of America, and our slogan was, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. You've heard of snow jobs.
So people that he thought were good snowmen, he would invite in, and he was the chief potentate of the Snowman's League of America. So there was a long period in there where we didn't even call him Colonel, we called him potentate.
It was so much fun to see new members get their book because they were excited about it. And they would start and they would look at the first part and they would read a few basic rules, and then they would come to this section that was all blank pages.
He was promoting when he handed you a book with nothing written down on the pages. he took you, you know?
When you can read everything on every page, you're a real member. And they would give him this look, what is this about? And then he would say, a real snowman reads between the lines.
I'm going to Google it. Why was Colonel Tom Parker called a snowman?
In 1967, Elvis married Priscilla in Las Vegas, a city that would have great significance for both Elvis and the Colonel.
The Colonel said, come on, nudged me. He said, come on. Where was he going? He loved roulette. And roulette was his game. And we went out, he bought about $50,000 worth of chips, which at that time I think was about 1960.
Here we are, guys. Colonel Tom Parker was nicknamed the Snowman because of his ability to con people out of their money, often leaving them smiling after the transaction. This snow job involved cheating spectacles and promotions designed to separate people from their cash. He saw himself as a carnival barker, skilled at manipulating situations and audiences. The name also alludes to a tongue-in-cheek fraternal order he created called the Snowman's League of America. So they just mentioned that, haven't they, guys? So there we are. Now we know. His career started in the carnival. Parker frequently used the word snow business to describe his promotional tactics, which involved cheating, elaborate, often deceptive shows and deals. Parker's nickname stemmed from the tendency to a significant portion of Elvis Presley's earnings, sometimes even more than Elvis himself, according to the South China Morning Post. South China Morning Post. His gambling habit also contributed to his reputation as a con man, as he often needed to generate money to cover his debts. Now, what does Matthew at Hillbilly think of that? Because Matthew thinks that Colonel Tom Parker didn't gamble. So, Matthew, to cover his debts. Parker's business practice, particularly his handling of Elvis's career and finances, were highly controversial.
It was, and $50,000 was a big buy. And while he was playing, he said, this is the luckiest casino for me. So I always suspected that that's why he selected that one to have the wedding at, because it was a good chance for him to get out. And by the way, he lost the $50,000.
Although gambling would prove to be a worrisome vice, Parker had no problem avoiding other temptations.
I used to drive him sometimes from L.A. to Palm Springs to his home. We'd stop halfway down there. He said, Joe, let's stop and get a beer. Well, I'd never do the Colonel ever to drink. So I said, okay. He said, let's split a beer. We'd split a beer. Apparently, he never ever said it. Maybe he was one of those guys when he was young that when he drank, he was a completely different person. I had that feeling about it. So he knew he couldn't drink. And that was the only time I ever saw him have anything with alcohol.
You know, I don't recall that the Colonel ever drank, but he did enjoy a great cigar, and we always had cigars on tour.
So it says here, unlike the traditional format for a biopic, Elvis is narrated by Hank's character, Parker. So they're referring to the biopic film, Baz Luhrmann's film, and obviously Tom Hanks plays him. So while the film covers Presley's life from birth to the grave, the film focuses on the relationship between Presley and his greedy manager, Parker. As the film shows, Parker first saw Presley perform at the Louisiana Hayride in 1955, and shortly after that, Parker became Presley's manager. As is seen in Elvis's Colonel Tom Parker's relationship with Presley bordered on predatory, with Parker taking more than half of Presley's income and mismanaging Presley's career to further benefit himself. Being a predator was a source of great personal pride for Parker, however, so much so that Parker dubbed himself the Snowman, a sly turn on the word showman, using the slang term snow, which is another word for con. I didn't know that. There we are. So snow is another word for con. Now I've just learned something new. Or trick. Con or trick. Snow, also the word trick. Claiming there was no one more gifted at deceiving or snowing someone, Parker leaned heavily into his own joke as Luhrmann's show in Elvis and the Colonel, Tom Parker's office overflowing with snowmen. Parker even went so far as to create a club called the Snowmen's League of America with membership cards and stationery, proving the term was no joke. So basically, it's a group of snowmen that designed to make people part with their money. Yeah, con men.
In 1969, Elvis began performing at the International Hotel, signifying the official start of his Vegas years.
I first met Colonel Parker in 1969, in the spring of 1969, when he came into Las Vegas to sign the contract for the opening at the International Hotel. And the hotel wasn't even opened at that time. It was still under construction. Romance bloomed because Colonel and I were kindred spirits. We had a personal relationship before we had a working relationship.
Did they?
At that time, his wife was suffering from what they now would call Alzheimer's. She didn't always even know Colonel. His life was a sad life at home.
You could go.
So a bit more. Beginning his days in the circus, Parker had a deep passion for swindling people out of their money, from chickens, cruelty made to dance, because they were only on a hot plate covered with straws to lice. So we've heard the story about the dancing chickens on a hot plate, which is bloody cruel, to be honest with you guys. Parker discovered that he had a keen ability to make people believe he knew about something special. This was never more so the case than when he was managing world-famous musicians and movie star Elvis Presley, making millions of him by taking over 50% of his earnings. See, look, people keep bringing up this 50% earnings, guys. But Colonel Tom Parker, I will say, got paid his 50% after expenses, and not every part of the agreement between Elvis and Colonel was 50%. There were different levels of percentages. So I'm not on Colonel Parker's side. I'm just saying there is more to it.
Go to Vegas with him when Elvis was there, and he might stay up all night in the casino or just at the hotel and go get 2 hours sleep, and the rest of us, who are a lot younger than the Colonel, would just be dragging, and he would be full of pep.
When they were filming That's the Way It Is at the International Hotel, the fans from the back had started to move forward, and he was about to be mobbed, and Colonel jumped up, ran up, picked up Elvis, and put him on the other side of a barrier. And I sat there, I absolutely could not believe it. He came back, sat down, like nothing had happened, and I said, "Colonel, you're back. Are you all right?" And he said, "I had to help him."
With Vegas
So, right, guys, I'm trying to look up the deal, see if I can get a proper breakdown of the deal. Let's keep going, guys.
August, now his center of operations, the Colonel was able to indulge his vice with even more passion than in earlier years.
Colonel liked to gamble. We first started playing Las Vegas. I mean, we didn't know this till we went to Vegas. I mean, until we started playing there. And I'd see him at the roulette wheel, and he'd say, "Joe, sit down, play." We'd play some roulette, you know. And little by little, I think he got hooked.
You know, he was gambling, and when you gamble.
So it says here he paid £35,000 for Elvis's contract on November the 21st, 1955.
If you gamble, you'll sell your mother. I didn't sell my mother for too long, just 2 days I sold my mother. She overcame that.
Colonel Parker was a tremendous gambler. I mean, when Elvis was working at the Hilton Hotel, he lost literally millions of dollars. And that's why he booked Elvis in there a lot of times. And I don't think Elvis ever really knew how much money that was being taken from him.
My manager, Colonel Tom Parker, where is he? Is the Colonel around anywhere? Oh, he's out, he's out playing roulette. Don't kid me, I know what he's doing. Him and Cosby out there talking mash and drinking trash or whatever.
Despite Elvis's kidding, there may have been some genuine frustration behind those words.
If the Colonel would come in the room, I mean, it was like, anything, whatever you want. And then as the years wore on and as their relationship deteriorated, would be in Vegas seeing Elvis, and he would, for spite, sing the songs that the Colonel hated the most, just to make the Colonel, upset, and the Colonel would be outside gambling Elvis's next paycheck.
I think the Colonel kind of...
So let me just, I found a little bit of a contract here. It says, Elvis has now turned 21 and is able to contract with Parker without signatures from Vernon and Gladys. The contract makes Parker Elvis sole and exclusive advisor, personal representative, and manager in any and all the fields public of private entertainment, and basically incorporates the terms of the 1955 contract. Okay, so when Elvis turned 21, it changed. Then there's a copy of the contract dated March the 26th, 1956. Colonel Tom Parker, Box 417, Madison, Tennessee. Dear Sir, in the consideration of the sum of $1 and other good and valuable consideration, each of us other in hand paid receipt of which hereby acknowledged is hereby agreed as follows. Under the date November the 21st, 1955, the undersigned Elvis Presley, together with his parent and Mr. and Mrs. Vernon Presley, entered into an agreement with you under which you were engaged by Elvis Presley as his sole and exclusive advisor and personal representative upon the terms and provisions contained in said agreement, and except only modified and explained in this agreement, said agreement dated November the 21st, 1955, and is hereby ratified and confirmed. And then it says the undersigned Elvis Presley have since reached the age of 21 and hereby represents, undertakes, and agrees to the following. So obviously I mean, these kind of documents, guys, they're so boring. But now it was said earlier that there was no contract. It was a handshake agreement and they never had a contract. So this shows something different. So I'm not going to read all that, but it basically is Elvis agreeing to it. Now, does it give the terms? Does it give the terms? Let's have a look. I wonder if it will give us the breakdown. No, it doesn't. Let's have a look. No, it doesn't there's no mention of the whole 50-50 bullshit. No mention of, just more of a mention that he is the manager and he represents him. So, interesting, guys.
Kind of boxed him in. Elvis, the feeling I had about Elvis is he wanted more of a life, and he was having less of a life.
I know from many conversations with Elvis that he was adamant about letting go of Colonel Parker, finding a new manager, And he wanted to have a different lifestyle than the one he was leading.
They were a great match. But like all good matches, there came a time when the Colonel should have eased. And I don't think he did.
Colonel and Elvis had a big fight one time, and Colonel walked out. He says, I'm through, I'm out of here. It was in Vegas at one time, and he said, you know, you get somebody else. And that went on for about a week, 10 days, and I think the Colonel, you know, Elvis said, we got to get somebody else to manage me, and let's talk to Tom Hewlett, see if Tom will handle me. Tom was one of the concert promoters. He was Jerry Weintraub's partner on Concerts West, and Elvis liked Tom tremendously, and he wanted, you know, but Elvis even talked to Tom Hewlett about taking Colonel's place, and Tom said, you know, you can't do that. Colonel's your best manager, and he knows you, and he's with you, stuck with you all those years, and he's the best guy for you.
Interesting. So I'm just interested a little bit that you got the RCA Records thing, and the thing, you know, obviously we know that RCA were the main people, weren't they? So it says here, RCA Records owned all of Elvis's music recordings. The RCA Records label was bought by BMG in 1980, and in 2004, BMG merged with Sony Music Entertainment to become Sony BMG. Sony BMG owns Elvis recordings. They continue to use the RCA Records label for issuing Elvis releases. They also have a special Elvis collection label, Follow That Dream Records. Various composers, publishers own the songs themselves. People get confused about the ownership of the recordings with that of the song. Also, they get confused about the deal that Elvis and his manager made with RCA in 1973, which we're very interested in, isn't it? Here is our attempt to sort it out for you. So they're going to try and tell us. Elvis began his recording career with Sun Records with Memphis in summer of 1954. Sun Records owner Sam Phillips sold Elvis' recording contract and the catalogue of Elvis Sun Records to RCA in the fall of 1955. Elvis began recording for RCA in January 1956 and continued under contract with RCA for the rest of his life. Elvis never had ownership of his Sun or RCA recordings. Okay? Elvis received an artist royalty on record sales per the terms of his contract with the record company. That's typical of how it's done. Okay, well, that's interesting. Elvis never owned his own recording rights. He always was on a percentage. So this is the deal that everyone's talking about. Okay, guys? March 1973. Yeah? This is the deal. In March 1973, Elvis and his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, went to the record company proposing that Elvis get a large lump sum. Now, I asked this, why did they go to the record company to get a large lump sum? Was this forced by the second divorce settlement that Priscilla was demanding? She was demanding a lot of money. I think it was 1.5 million, maybe more. She wanted a massive amount of money for the second divorce settlement. Remember, she'd already agreed to never go back for more money, but she broke her agreement. She had to prove there was fraud, that Elvis was hiding his assets and his income so that the judge would allow her to go back for a second divorce settlement, because she had signed contracts saying she would never go back for more money, allegedly for entertainment purposes. So from what I'm hearing, this is just an opinion, that they went to RCA Records for a large amount of money because they couldn't afford to pay Priscilla. They were scared of losing Graceland. Is this true? Put it in the comments. Were they scared of losing Gracelands? So I've had a few comments today, people saying, you do know that the only reason that Colonel Tom Parker and Elvis went to RCA was because they were in trouble financially, because Priscilla was demanding too much money with her lawyers. You know, Priscilla was being very, very greedy, guys. This is cruel. I really believe that the way Priscilla handled the second divorce settlement was very, very greedy. And remember, this was still going on when Elvis died. They were still arguing about money and Lisa, and they were still worried they were going to lose Gracelands because of this lien this deed of trust that was created to put a debt on Graceland that would guarantee that Elvis would be able to pay his installments to Priscilla because she was demanding so much money. It's horrific, guys, horrific. So Colonel Tom Parker went to the record company proposing that Elvis get a large lump sum payment in lieu of all his future artist royalties for ongoing sales of anything he had recorded up to that time. The deal was made. RCA paid $5.4 million, which Elvis and the Colonel split 50-50. That meant Elvis no longer got, right, so EPE today does not get. So EPE does not get anything before 1973 of Elvis's recording records. His records, basically, before 1973. His albums, all that, yeah? That meant Elvis no longer... Right, so his artist royalties for the ongoing sale of any recordings created before March 1973 deal. However, Elvis did continue to get his artist royalties on sales of records created after 1973 deal. Some people misunderstood and think that Elvis had a share of his ownership of his records and that this is what he sold to RCA. He did not. Okay, so I think that's pretty clear, yeah? After 73, EPE gets all that, don't they? Yeah, EPE gets their percentage of the royalties. It's still owned by Sony, by RCA, yeah? Which I think is terrible. I think it's so bad. But, you know, a deal that should never have happened may have been forced by Priscilla's greed for money on the divorce settlement. So, guys, pretty bad. Pretty bad. Donna, okay, she had that. It's obvious she's selfish, greedy. Guys, I know many of you are not happy with Priscilla, but remember, we don't defend with hate. We defend with facts and truth. We're not here to hate. We're here to defend with facts and truth. Very important to me. Total separate from the ownership of Elvis recording, the ownership of the song themselves. Elvis recorded over 700 songs. Okay?
Members of Elvis's backup band were treated to the Colonel's special brand of eccentricity.
I was down in the dressing rooms. There was that long hallway, and the Colonel, we were the only two down there, and the Colonel was walking this way, and I'm walking this way, and he did one of these numbers. Just passed me like this. Didn't even acknowledge I was alive. And I thought, God, what did I do? What did I say, you know? So I asked, I think it was Red West, I asked somebody, I said, I told him what happened, and Red started laughing. He said, oh, he said, they had a meeting last night, and the Colonel found out how much you were making. And he told Elvis, he said, boy, I could put chimpanzees on the stage with you and the people still love you. And he never said a word as far as I know he didn't say a word to me for 5 years.
One up-and-coming singer-songwriter got a first-hand taste of the Colonel's peculiar ways.
Somebody said, the Colonel wants to meet you. And I said, you're kidding. And I said, okay. And I went over there. And he says, you the boy that wrote this song? And I said, yes, sir. He said, what's your name? I said, Mac Davis. He says, bend over here and let the Colonel rub that curly head of yours. And I said, excuse me? And all the Memphis boys said, hey, you know, let him do it. So I did it, and he rubbed my head, and he said, now you can tell everybody that Colonel Parker rubbed your head. You're going to be a star.
He was constantly calling me on the telephone and giving me advice at the Golden Nugget and at the Mirage and at Treasure Island, and then he never made it to Bellagio, but at the Mirage. And he always knew what was going on. He once called me up and said, Steve, I want you to take out a pencil. Now, you know I don't give you any bad steers. And you know I can spot somebody when they're coming. I said, sure, I know that, Colonel. He said, well, I'm gonna tell you one. Now, you mark this down. It's a girl. First name Celine, C-E-L-I-N-E. Last name Dion, D-I-O-N, like the singer.
Okay, guys, obviously that documentary is very much concerning Colonel Tom Parker and anyone that knew him, yeah? So I'm just looking at this. There's a few things that Elaine sent me. One of the things she sent me is titled "Complaint Filed by the Presley Estate Against Colonel Tom Parker." It's from 1981. Okay, so let's have a look. In the light of Baz Luhrmann's movie Elvis and the Legal issued, it raised regarding Colonel Tom Parker's relationship with Elvis and even the lawsuit following Elvis's death. We are publishing some documents related to the lawsuit, beginning with extracts of the complaints filed by Presley Estate against Colonel Tom Parker. So this is this to do with the Blanchard Tool thing, that he's known as the savior who managed to squeeze out Colonel Tom Parker, yeah? I'm just guessing now, yeah? But it says here, to provide some history and investigation into the relationship between the estate of Colonel Tom Parker was ordered by probate judge Joseph Evans shortly after the death of Elvis's father, Vernon Presley, in 1979. Following that investigation, which was conducted by Lisa Marie's guardian ad litem, Blanchard Tool. Yeah, I think we all know that name, don't we? Blanchard Tool. The probate court of Shelby County, Tennessee, ordered that the cessation of all payments to Parker. The judge also directed the estate to bring suit against Parker regarding his improper management practices relating to Elvis and his estate. The suit also to name RCA as an accomplice. So they even named RCA as an accomplice. The following is excerpted. This is an excerpt, yeah, from the complaint filed by the Presley estate against Colonel Parker with links to related documents. So in February 1955, and let me just see how long this is, guys, because I can't read loads. All right, no, it's really long. So basically this, I think we need to do this on a separate live stream, but they've dated it way back to 1955 in February. They keep going. So there's a lot of information here, guys. We need to read this out on a separate live. So the bottom line is they're going through all the different agreements. Then we've got a date here. There was an amendment on January 2nd, 1967. Parker caused Elvis to enter into an amendment to their existing management agreement, which Elvis executed in Memphis, Tennessee. So this is where it changes a bit. Pursuant to which Parker's management commission for no apparent consideration was increased from 25% to 50%. Now that is worrying, yeah? So I didn't know about this, and this was on the 2nd of January 1967. With respect to a substantial portion of Elvis's future gross income, Parker served as Elvis's sole and exclusive personal manager in fiduciary for a 21-year period commencing 1956 and terminating upon Elvis's death on August 16, 1977. As a result of this continuing contractual relationship, Parker, all the times relevant, occupied the position of trust and confidant as his sole advisor and manager and was under a strict fiduciary duty to act solely in Elvis's best personal and professional interest. Okay. So this, what does this tell you, guys? Does this tell you that even after Elvis died, he was still his manager, basically? He was still getting his 50%. I think that's what that means, yeah? Isn't this why Blanchard Tool, it all goes to court, doesn't it, guys? There's a lot of lawsuit threats, and somehow they have some kind of settlement. I think it was $3 million. I think the settlement was $3 million. Okay. Louis, there's an ABC News interview with Parker. Yeah, I've seen that to see what his side of the story is. Should we? Should we just try and see if we can get that up? I think I've watched enough of this. Interview so far. ABC. Let's see what comes up. I have watched it before. Here we go. Let's listen to it.
Is himself a legend, a showbiz pro with an old-time carny man's flair for bringing them into the tent. Colonel Tom Parker saw Elvis Presley for what he could be, and as his personal manager, launched him on the royal road to stardom. To mark the Elvis Presley anniversary, Colonel Parker is playing host in the Elvis Suite, the rooms where Presley stayed when he was playing the Las Vegas Hilton, then the International Hotel. The suite has been filled with Presley memorabilia for just this week. At age 78, Colonel Parker generally declines interviews, but he agreed to talk to us earlier today from Las Vegas.
Okay, guys, so it's August the 15th, 1987. So almost to the day, 10 years after Elvis died. Almost to the day.
It is generally conceded, Colonel Parker, and to those who don't know it, let's tell them right now that Elvis's success was part Elvis, part Colonel Parker. Which part was yours? Because that was the less visible part.
I think mine was the least part.
But explain it to me. What was it? What did you do for him to help bring him to the public's attention?
I did all the promotion, the outdoor advertising, and he did the show on the stage, and the fans made it possible. You could promote all you want to, but if the people don't want to buy a ticket, it doesn't help. So I did my part, Elvis did his show, and we were lucky. Great talent, and we had a great show and a lot of fun.
Now, let me ask you something. In this day and age, in the 1980s, it would be unthinkable that a star of Elvis Presley's magnitude would not end up on the Johnny Carson show, on the Merv Griffin show, on half the talk shows around the country. You deliberately kept him back a little bit from that kind of exposure. Why did you do that?
Well, I like to correct you. I kept him back, but I didn't do it deliberately. I found out some of my friends, they had artists, they put them on all the shows, talk shows for free, and they had a hard time getting a job after that.
So you thought it was just a bad, that it was bad promotion, even though it got someone very well known, that it ultimately didn't work out for the best?
Well, I felt it was good for us not to go on, although all these fellas were good friends of mine. But when you go on these shows, most of the time they book people when they're big stars, so they don't hurt them too much. But we were starting out, and it wouldn't have helped us any, which has proven because we did all right without him.
Yeah, you did terrific without him. You've got critics, you know that. You have them. Even Elvis has critics. Your critics say...
So, I'll carry on playing that in a sec, but do you know what bothers me the most about this? Is that the press, the TV, you know, the news companies, many people give credit to Colonel Tom Parker for discovering Elvis, for making Elvis successful. I just don't agree. I think someone else would have discovered him. Even with Sam Phillips. Yeah, don't forget, Elvis had a manager before Sam Phillips. I just think Elvis, it was inevitable that he was going to be famous. I noticed Carolyn says it on her comment. Come on, guys. Doesn't matter who it was. Elvis was ambitious. Elvis was going to make it happen. Yeah, Elvis was hell-bent on becoming a singer, a well-known, famous singer. He wanted it. He was hungry for it. So Elvis was singing before he met Sam Phillips. Yeah, so he was doing little small gigs, wasn't he, guys? Around 1954, is that right? So, you know, come on, guys. He was going to be famous. No matter who it was. It wasn't because of Colonel Tom Parker. It wasn't because of Sam Phillips. Yeah, there were many reasons, but inevitably he would have got there. At some point, he was going to be the most famous man on the planet. It was going to happen.
That you held him back, that he could have been much more of an actor, for example, than he ultimately, you know, was given a chance to be.
Well,
because you put him in those kind of, you know, beach bikini, jailhouse rock type movies.
Well, if whoever said that, that's fine. They can say what they want to. If I was them, if they know so much, they ought to go into management business.
Well, you tell me about it. I mean, was he perfectly content? I mean, was it a matter of his knowing his own level, knowing his own limitations, or was it just
Well, I didn't know what he knew all of it, but he knew that he could do whatever he wanted to, and nobody told Elvis Presley what to do, because he was a very strong person, and we had a great relationship, but I took care of mine, he took care of his, and he didn't let anybody tell him what to do.
Could he have been?
Do you know, I've heard this again and again, that Elvis was very strong-minded. But I also hear that he would sort of leave the Colonel to do business. Let the Colonel do the deals, because the Colonel knew how to get the most money. Yeah. Unfortunately, when it came to choosing movies, decent film roles, decent scripts, Colonel didn't have a clue. Didn't have a clue.
A really great actor? Could he have become a fine dramatic actor, do you think? Did he have that kind of ability?
You know, Ted, you're right, but you know, one time at one studio, we had a great producer, the late Jerry Walt. You remember him?
Sure do.
And he came to us with a script. And he told Elvis that if we did this picture, he would be practically assured of an Academy Award. But they could not pay us the money that we wanted because the script was so expensive. So I told him that we usually stay home during the Academy Award, and he paid us our money, and if he bought us the Oscar, I give him his money back, and I never saw him again.
Okay, now what about the songs? I am told that he could sit there and listen to a stack of demos, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 would go by, and then he'd say, "That's the one, I want that one," and that he had kind of an unerring instinct for what was good and right for him musically.
Yeah, Ted, as long as I was with Elvis Presley, I never was involved with what songs he was going to record. Very seldom I was ever in the studio. He picked his own songs with the songwriters, whatever they were, and he never asked me, should I do this or that? It was up to him. He liked it that way. The only song that I was able to have him record, because I thought it was good for him, was Are You Lonesome Tonight? That's the only one.
It's funny he throws that in, that the only one he wanted him to record was Are You Lonesome Tonight? Isn't that one of Elvis's biggest hits of all of his hits? But
step back for a moment and do what I know so many people who are watching tonight would like you to do, and that is explain, if you can, the Elvis phenomenon. Not just while he was alive, but here we are 10 years after his death, and if anything, he's a bigger star than he ever was.
I think it's wonderful, the following, the people supporting him, and what else can you say? I've never heard of anything like this, but I'm very happy with it, and I know if Elvis is anyway looking down, I think he's laughing pretty good with what's going on. I don't think I can explain.
what does that mean? What does that mean? He's laughing pretty good by what's going on. Strange answer.
Ted, I've been 10 years since Elvis passed away. When he passed away, I was on tour. I had to stay behind, close out all the tours. But I've been for 10 years doing nothing except consulting work and working on keeping Elvis's name in the limelight with the fans because they're devoted. I've talked to over 1,000 in the last 4 days here. I did interviews, and it's unexplainable. They say anybody else could have done it, perhaps so, but I
definitely so.
I happened to be the one that was with him. He did his part, I did mine, and there is no answer for that.
When all is said and done now, was he happy with his career? Was he satisfied with his career, or was there any emptiness left?
Well, I don't know, but I know one thing. When I told us to slow down, he said, I want to play more dates. So I booked more dates. I said, well, I don't think you should. And he said, well, that's what I want to do. And I quit for a while, and he was very unhappy, so we started all over again.
Colonel Parker, thanks very much.
Thank you.
That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
Okay, Ted Coplin in Washington. I actually think quite a good interview, quite good questions. I don't think he was trying to make Elvis look bad. I think I like him. Do any of you remember him in America? I like that guy. Right, let's listen to this little clip here.
While making a personal appearance for the Elvis Presley commemorative stamp at the Las Vegas Hilton, Colonel Tom Parker defended his relationship with Elvis. He gave this rare television interview exclusively to Inside Edition.
Scripts. I never read script. Elvis read script. The boys brought him script. William Morris. I had nothing to do with him picking whatever picture he wanted to make.
Colonel, I've spoken to some people in the so-called Memphis Mafia, and they told me that one of the reasons Elvis got so heavily involved in drugs was because he was frustrated with his career, a career path that you led him on. What do you think of that?
Well, those that do that, they did it because they got paid for it. Books, they paid them. We have quite a few members of Elvis' staff that don't feel that way. For the time Elvis died, 16 years ago, till today, I've turned down more books for big money because my story, they will not print. They said, no, we want the dirt. I said, well, I'm not a dirt farmer.
Well, that's good. He's sort of saying that he was offered money to do books, but he didn't want to say all the trashy stuff about Elvis. I like that. I like that. I mean, he's very elderly there. You know, it's like, is it 16 years after Elvis died or something? I don't know. And you can tell that, I think you can tell from the way he is, he's had a lot of grief. He's been given a lot of shit, basically, from fans. Like, he's been accused of some pretty nasty things, which are probably true, yeah? Obviously, the fans are protective of Elvis. So the fans, for decades, were upset with Colonel Tom Parker about this 50-50 deal and many other things. He's blamed for the bad movies. I mean, I love all the movies, but I understand, yeah? He doesn't look well, does he? He doesn't look well, but he did live to a ripe old age, didn't he? Does anyone know how old he was when he passed?
That's the funniest story ever came out. There was never no plan for him to do Star Born. He told me to make the contract stiff enough where they would turn it down because he did not want to do it.
Another accusation is that you gave the Hilton a cushy deal. They didn't pay very much money for Elvis to entertain here to take care of some of your gambling debts.
My gambling had...
Here we are, Matthew at Hillbilly Cat. Let's hear what the gambling debts are. Matthew says he didn't gamble. That it's bullshit. There was no gambling. There was no money.
Never anything to do with Elvis. And at rate, Elvis got more money.
Some of your gambling debts.
Matthew, are you there? Where are you, Matthew? Come on. You said Colonel Tom Parker never gambled.
My gambling had never anything to do with Elvis. And at rate, Elvis got more money during the period we played here than any artist in town. Liberace was getting $50,000. He was getting $125,000 a week.
The Colonel was also criticized for making bad business deals for Elvis and taking half of his profits.
I know of 4 or 5 big stars that have a deal like that.
I just want to quickly say Dan's comment. Parker was greedy, but you got to give him credit for not writing a book. That book would have been a bestseller. Yeah, it would have. So people keep saying it to me. No matter what we think of Colonel Tom Parker, he never trashed Elvis. Never. Even these old interviews, he doesn't trash Elvis. He doesn't. He could do. He could trash Elvis for money, couldn't he? He could write the trash books. He could do interviews trashing Elvis, talking about drugs and eating and many other things, couldn't he? Yeah? But he doesn't. He doesn't. He keeps Elvis's dignity. He doesn't shame Elvis. So you have to respect him for that. How many people close to Elvis trashed him? Yeah? Friends, family, stepbrothers, ex-wife, Memphis Mafia, trashed him for money. In the 70s and 80s and 90s and noughties. Colonel Tom Parker never trashed Elvis. You have to say that that is a good thing.
But my deal was not 50% of the profit. My deal was 50% of work I created where he did not have to perform. And we had a partnership. But
Yeah, so Richie Boy says he didn't need to write a book because he's always made money from Elvis. I agree. But he still didn't. He could have been very greedy and made even more money. He could have done loads of trash interviews. Come on, guys. The books that we've been discussing recently, the ones that went out of their way, supposed close friends of Elvis, people that are related to Elvis, did things for money. They trashed him for money. It's heartbreaking, guys.
on the motion pictures, the hotel, and the music business, 25%, never no more. All I know is I sleep very good at night. And Elvis and I were friends. I had a whole staff that could go to Europe, but he didn't want to go because he didn't want to play outdoors. And if you don't play outdoors, you can't make it.
What about the recent portrayals of you accusing you of misrepresenting Elvis and exploiting him?
If you give me an honest answer, do you think I exploited Elvis as much as he being exploited today?
I think, do you know what? I think that was a good interview. Seriously, guys, I think the guy asked good questions. I think the way that the questions were answered were pretty good. So what is this? Let's have a look. Is there anything else that's like that? I think that's probably... Should we listen to Tom Hanks' little version about...
Back there, yeah.
Help me understand.
Let's have a little listen to what Tom Hanks says about his role. Obviously, he plays him.
And how you become that character. So Baz Luhrmann says, I want you as Tom Parker. This is a guy who is like Dutch, but he kind of hid that. He pretended like he was sort of a Southern honorary colonel. All of these weird things. He hid his past. How did you sort of build the architecture for me about how Tom Hanks then transforms into this character that becomes convincing for a viewer?
I was very lucky because I had no idea what Colonel Tom Parker looked like. I had no idea what he sounded like. I had the same sense that, Colonel Tom Parker, he must have been a foghorn, leghorn kind of guy. Well, let me tell you here, son, I'm not going to tell you what you're going to do right now. And I had heard stories from my makeup man, Danny Strepek, who did Elvis for 4 movies, including Viva Las Vegas. And the first thing I ever heard about Colonel Tom Parker, he was just a low-class carny. That's all he was. He'd cheat you out of a quarter, that kind of thing. That's what I'd heard, but I did not know what he looked like. And when I did see what he looked like, I asked Baz Luhrmann, why do you want me?
That's a good point. Why did Baz Luhrmann want Tom Hanks? I love Tom Hanks. I'm a big Tom Hanks fan, yeah? But it's an unusual choice.
This is a heavyset, balding man with, a hawk-like nose with this weird accent that no one can actually place. And so my questions was, okay, boss, let's collaborate. What are you going for here? Are you going for the physical look? And he said, oh, yes, yeah. So we're talking about a substantial amount of prosthetics in order.
1 second, guys. So I want to read a new person has joined us, Sunflower. Welcome. What is your name? What country are you in? When new people join us, I do like them to introduce themselves. So what is your name, Sunflower? The comment is, I truly don't think Elvis would have been so big without Parker. He could have done so much hurt, but he didn't. Memphis Mafia were quick to hurt him. Yeah, I mean, that's a mixed bag of in your comment. So I obviously personally disagree. I think Elvis was always going to the top. Honestly, guys, with or without Tom Parker. Maybe Tom Parker speeded things up, possibly. But don't forget, he's with Sam Phillips. So he's at a position of selling records. He's doing reasonably well. Yeah. So that was a springboard. And then it just happened to be Colonel Tom Parker that saw an opportunity. Yeah. And then obviously Colonel Tom Parker had links. He was with, people like RCA, with the TV people. and obviously he was already managing other artists. So I honestly believe that anyone that managed Elvis was going to take him to the top. Maybe not so quick. Then the other comment is the Memphis Mafia were quick to hurt him. Unfortunately, certain members of the Memphis Mafia, and unfortunately, some related to him, they were quick to hurt him. They were to trash him. It's the truth.
To make me look like Colonel Tom Parker. He says, oh, yes. I said, okay. Now, I had just played Falstaff in a production of Henry IV here in Los Angeles. Because the other thing is, okay, so that's what you're going for as far as look, and I'm going to assume the same thing is going to voice, because I've received, commands from directors. Oh, you're going to do a dialect. That's okay. All right. Very good. Stephen on Catch Me If You Can. He says, I want Carl Hanratty to be from Boston. I said, no.
Right, I just want to speed this up a bit because I don't have long left, guys. Let's see if we can get him talking about the Colonel.
Desire was to run Barnum and Bailey's Big Top Circus. That's what his dream. He jumped ship once and stayed and then went back. And then when he came back again, probably for scurrilous reasons, not just dodging his past, but perhaps the law. No one knows for sure. And then adopting a whole, he called himself Tom Parker. And then one day he was awarded an honorary colonel, made an honorary Kentucky colonel by, the mayor of, Knoxville, Tennessee or something like that, or someplace in Kentucky. And so then he adopted Colonel Tom Parker. That's how and he still had that crazy, the odd voice, but Colonel Tom Parker. Now, here's where it ends up going south. Rita knows Priscilla Presley from Women's Cancers Organizations, and they happen to run.
This will be interesting, guys.
Run into each other in a restaurant here in L.A. And Rita, hey, Priscilla.
Now remember, Priscilla liked Colonel Tom Parker. I've got a few interviews where she praises him.
Oh, Tom, we're so excited that Tom's going to be doing the Baz movie about my husband. Yeah. Well, yeah. Would you like to come up? Could come up and we'll have dinner and we'll talk about it.
Wow.
And so not only did Priscilla come up, but Jerry Schilling, who was a member of the original Memphis Mafia, who knew Elvis from high school touch football games, back in Memphis. They came up.
Jerry Schilling, very close to Priscilla. Let's keep going.
And I said, we were just beginning the process. And I said, oh, well, please give me a great horror story about Colonel Tom Parker.
Yeah.
And they looked at me and they said, we don't have any horror stories about Colonel Tom Parker.
Huh.
And I said,
yeah.
Look, you don't have to be nice, don't worry about it. I said, no, Colonel Tom Parker was a lovely man who was a delight to be around, who showed nothing but.
See, I've heard this a few times. He had a good side. He helped people. But then he's got the very brutal, the very devious, the very intelligent Snowman side to him.
The greatest respect for my husband. And my husband would not have become what he did without Colonel Tom Parker. Jerry Schilling said, I wish he was still alive today so I could talk to him on the phone once a week.
Wow.
He took care of Priscilla Presley long after the divorce. He called her every Sunday and said, how are you doing? How's your daughter? Is there anything I can do for you? If there's anything that I need. Now.
Didn't know that. So he would call Priscilla after the divorce most days, offering his help for Lisa. Interesting. Now, I've heard it's because of Colonel Tom Parker that the wedding happened, the marriage happened with Elvis and Priscilla, that he really pushed for it to happen, as well as Priscilla's parents.
Now, she also said, look, he was a carny and we had to sue him for the money that he owed us. But, that's because he was not my husband's manager. He was my husband's promoter. And both of them, both Jerry and Priscilla, described Elvis in a term that I think you would probably use for a great artist like Picasso.
So before he says this, when Priscilla calls Elvis her husband, I just find that so uncomfortable because they married in 1967. 9 months later, there's a baby. 3 months after that, Priscilla is unfaithful. Whilst Lisa Marie is a baby, Priscilla is unfaithful. Not even a year after the marriage. Yeah. And then a year and 18 months after that, Priscilla runs off with Mike Stone, the karate champion, who she'd been secretly seeing for a year. So when Priscilla calls him a husband, calls Elvis her husband, their marriage, guys, come on, Priscilla and Elvis's marriage was a joke. It only really lasted 2 years because there was a lot of unfaithfulness. I know Elvis was also unfaithful, but I don't blame him. He's caught his wife, who has just had a baby, being unfaithful with the dance instructor, Steve Peck. So to me, it feels weird when Priscilla calls Elvis her husband. It feels weird to me.
Or maybe Eugene O'Neill or somebody. They said, you have to understand, the only thing that mattered to my husband was music. Performing music. At 3 o'clock in the morning, if he wasn't in bed, he would be downstairs playing gospel on the piano in the living room. He loved, that's what he wanted to do. He could not say yes or no. He said, yes, sir, of course.
Yeah.
He took guidance. And if you take this reality, there's this old story. It's not in the movie, unfortunately. I wish it was, in which the colonel said to Elvis, son, right now you have $1 million worth of talent. When I'm done with you, you'll have $1 million. And that's...
Was that actually said? Did that actually happen?
True.
Yeah.
From the signing with Colonel Tom Parker, in which he was essentially making a living by performing on around in small clubs and selling records out of the trunk of Sam Phillips's car.
Yeah.
He went from that to moving into the Graceland mansion, which he bought cash, within 18 months. So that's what Colonel...
Is that true? Because I heard there was a bit of a mortgage at first. Is it true or not, guys?
Tom Parker did for Elvis.
So here, I don't agree with this. I'm going to rewind this a bit. See, I don't agree with this. Tom Hanks is basically saying all of the success that Elvis had was because of Tom Hanks. So Tom Hanks, sorry, not Tom Hanks, because of Colonel Tom Parker. So Elvis is discovered by Colonel Tom Parker. Then all the success that happens is because of Colonel Tom Parker. Eventually, he says, buying Gracelands for cash. Yeah? Now, it isn't because of Colonel Tom Parker. It's because of Elvis. Elvis is the reason for the success. His songs, his hit songs. Yeah? Do we agree with that? If obviously his first movie as well, Love Me Tender, and then every movie Elvis did in the early years made an absolute fortune. Elvis is the reason for his success, not Colonel Tom Parker. I understand the management and the opportunities open doors because of Colonel Tom Parker. I get it. Any manager would have done it, but you needed Elvis to do it. Elvis is the reason for his success, not Colonel Tom Parker. That's just my view.
He took guidance, and if you take this reality, there's this old story. It's not in the movie, unfortunately. I wish it was, in which the colonel said to Elvis, son, right now you have $1 million worth of talent. When I'm done with you, you'll have $1 million, and that's true.
Yeah.
From the signing with Colonel Tom Parker, in which he was essentially making a living by performing on around in small clubs and selling records out of the trunk of Sam Phillips's car.
Yeah.
He went from that to moving into the Graceland mansion, which he bought cash, within 18 months. So that's...
I just want to, do you know what? The fact that he says that, I'd like to know, is that true? Did he buy it cash? Did Elvis buy Gracelands cash? Soon find out. Because, you know, I like Tom Hanks, but he's speaking like he's an expert on Elvis and Colonel Tom Parker. He isn't. He's an actor that played Colonel Tom Parker. Stefano says he did a terrible job of it. Was a bit weird. I think people are a bit hit and miss on whether they liked the way he played Colonel Tom Parker. I actually thought it was okay, but I know that I've heard many people say it was a bit weird. So let's see if he's right with his facts. Now, I heard that there was a mortgage with Gracelands, but let me just read it. Because I could definitely be wrong, guys. Let me read it on here. Yes, Elvis did pay Gracelands with a combination of cash and mortgage. In 1957, he purchased the property for $102,500. He paid $10,000 in cash. He received $55,000 for his previous property, Audubon Drive, and financed the remaining $36,500 with a 25-year mortgage. Louis wins. Tom Hanks, I beat you. Oh, I love it when I win. I'm the gambler, mate. Anyway, just messing about, guys. So yes, there was a mortgage. Tom Hanks, you are wrong. There was a £36,500 mortgage, guys. So no, Colonel Tom Parker didn't come along and give bucket loads of money to Elvis. Elvis made his own bucket loads of money with his voice and his movies. Yeah. And no, he didn't buy Graceland's cash. So Tom Hanks, get your facts right, mate, because that is wrong.
That's what Colonel Tom Parker did for Elvis.
No, he didn't.
The genius of Colonel Tom Parker cannot be overstated, but it is.
Oh my God. Don't call him a genius. Please don't call him a genius. I agree, he was a businessman. He was a carny. He was the snowman. The word snow, we've just found out, is a slang for trick or con. The showman, the snowman. Yeah, we've learnt this on this show. Please don't call him a genius. Yeah, he was a bit of a businessman. Even me, I'm a businessman. Yeah, I've made some money in my life as a businessman. I got into business when I was 19 years old. I'm 58 on July the 10th. Hint, hint. July the 10th is my birthday. But anyway, my point is this. I ain't no genius. I am no genius. I had some success in business. I'm not a genius. I use my common sense. Colonel Tom Parker was not a genius. I agree that he was good at things like merchandising and he knew how to get top dollar, negotiate a higher price. The reason he could negotiate good deals is because Elvis was the golden goose. Elvis was the golden goose. You could demand any amount of money for Elvis. You could negotiate a high amount of money on the record deals, on the movie deals, and merchandising deals because Elvis was a sure thing. Elvis was a sure thing. If you've got a sure thing, you can hold out for more money. It doesn't make him a genius. Elvis was, Colonel Tom Parker was not a genius.
It's all washed away, I think, from the great legacy of the late 60s and 70s in which the Colonel was wrong. I'm not going to say, he was not, there was no, he never advised Elvis.
Yeah.
He never said, I think you should do music like this. I think you should perform like this. What he was is very possessive. He wasn't about to, let go of the great elephant attraction that he had. That's another long story I can tell about.
Yeah.
If you want to be the richest guy in the carnival, own an elephant because everybody pays 25 cents to see the elephant. And they'll also pay another 10 cents for 2 cents worth of peanuts in order to feed the elephant. And that's what it was.
Yeah, so I think that is what I've just said, yeah? He had a sure thing in Elvis. So you don't get a top rating from me for this interview, Tom Hanks. I like you, but You get a flunk for me, mate. Right, let's just have a look. One more bit. Priscilla says that she liked Colonel Tom Parker. Did Priscilla like Colonel Tom Parker?
Because Colonel Parker seemed to know everything. Colonel, like he said in there, what is Colonel Parker to you, blah, blah, blah. Everything. So he depended on Colonel Parker because, like you said again, Sam Phillips couldn't do it for him.
Yeah.
Because Colonel Parker seemed to know everything. Colonel, like he said in there, what is Colonel Parker to you, blah, blah, blah. Everything. So he depended on Colonel Parker because, like you said again, Sam Phillips couldn't do it for him.
Yeah.
Because Colonel Parker...
That's rubbish. Sam Phillips didn't have a chance to do it. Sam Phillips was offered a very large amount of money. 35,000 was an absolute fortune. He just made a business decision, which secretly he probably regretted. I know Sam Phillips has always said he didn't regret it, but secretly, come on, he regretted it, yeah? So, no, Elvis didn't need Colonel Tom Parker. Now, remember, Priscilla was very close to Colonel Tom Parker. Colonel Tom Parker is probably the reason they got married, yeah? I actually think Colonel Tom Parker really liked Priscilla. Behind the scenes, may have been up to no good. Isn't it? We don't really know the kind of friendship that was going on between Priscilla and Colonel Tom Parker. They probably made a lot of money together, allegedly, for entertainment purposes. Everything I say is alleged entertainment purpose. Just a discussion, not a fact, just opinions that we're sharing as Team Elvis. So, there we go. I love Tom Hanks, but he totally doesn't know what he's talking about. You can tell he's been talking to the wrong people. I agree. But I'll be honest with you guys. You know, remember, I do like the Baz Luhrmann film, but I also dislike it. I think I saw there was a comment. I think it was from Mike. Hi, Mike, if you're watching. There's a good part. There's certain parts of the Baz Luhrmann film that are okay. Yeah. But there's a lot that isn't. I fully agree that the Baz Luhrmann film, the Elvis biopic, brought in a lot of new fans and was amazing in that way. Yeah. We know that Lisa loved it. Priscilla seems to have liked it. But it also, there was some quite unfair portrayals of people in that movie, especially Vernon, Gladys, even Elvis. The second half of the film after the Vegas comeback is very sad to watch. It's difficult to watch. Again, he's portrayed as an addict, yeah, which is so unfair because we want the world to know just how sick Elvis was and how much he needed his prescription medication. Now, I accept he abused them. I accept things went pear-shaped. But he was a sick, desperate man who couldn't sleep, who was in pain, who had very serious colon problems. Yeah. So the film doesn't show that. I also don't like the fact that the film doesn't show any of the ex-girlfriends as well. Yeah. So, which I think is just wrong. There's too much about the film trying to keep Priscilla happy. Keep Priscilla happy. Get Priscilla's approval. Get Priscilla to support the film. There's too much of that. I do like Austin Butler, but he ain't no Elvis. Yeah, that's just my views as a fan, guys. So let's see if there's another thing with Priscilla talking about Colonel Tom Parker. 1 second, guys. What is this? Let me just see. This is one of my old videos, guys.
Well, you know, it was about Colonel and Elvis and Elvis's dream, you know, to take his career further. He wanted to do movies and serious movies. And Colonel Parker just, you know, he should have really probably stayed a publicist because he just didn't have, he didn't take Elvis where he wanted to be. And that was hard because I lived it. I lived the arguments that they had. I lived, Elvis trying to explain that he didn't want to do the movies with all the girls and the beaches and everything, that he really wanted to do serious things. So living that with him and watching the movie, it brought back a lot of memories.
He almost saw Elvis just as a commodity, get him on stage, do whatever it takes. I was just wondering, all these years later, have you made peace with what happened with Colonel Parker? Did you ever make peace with him?
Yes, I did.
Yes, I did. Come on, guys. She married Elvis because of Colonel Tom Parker. What is this? Did Priscilla Presley like Colonel Tom Parker? Let's listen to this, guys. Hi, guys. Louis at Defending Elvis Presley. A great question. Priscilla Presley, did you like Colonel Tom Parker? Let's hear what she has to say.
The Colonel. Will we like the Colonel at the end of all of this, do you think? Or do you like the Colonel or not? You see, because there's that big divide about the Colonel. Was he manipulative? Did he hold Elvis back? What was your view of the Colonel?
I personally have had nothing but good experiences with the Colonel. I knew, listen, he was a human being. He was in fear that someone would grab Elvis and Elvis would go, to them, which is Hollywood, and that does happen. I am mixed, honestly, about how he handled Elvis. He was more of a promoter, not really a manager.
Yes,
a manager really has to do what their artists want. And there was, Colonel had other ideas because he was about making the money for the artist.
Well, that's it. Let's hear your opinion, guys, of what you think of her reply. Please comment. Hi, guys. Louis at Defending Elvis Presley. Just going to listen to it again one more time, guys. A great question. Priscilla Presley, did you like Colonel Tom Parker? Let's hear what she has to say.
The Colonel. Will we like the Colonel at the end of all of this, do you think? Or do you like the Colonel or not? You see, because there's that big divide about the Colonel. Was he manipulative? Did he hold Elvis back? What was your view of the Colonel?
I personally have had nothing but good experiences with the Colonel. I knew, listen, he was a human being. He was in fear that someone would grab Elvis and Elvis would go, to them, which is Hollywood, and that does happen. I am mixed, honestly, about how he handled Elvis. He was more of a promoter, not really a manager.
Yes,
a manager really has to do what their artists want. And there was, Colonel had other ideas because he was about making the money for the artist.
Well, that's it. Let's... Okay. I think that's different than what she's said in the past, but okay. Right, I think... Priscilla Presley, I liked Colonel Tom Parker. Is this a different one? Let me just see if this is the same one. Hang on a minute, guys. Right, let me just... This is one of my old videos. I made it a while ago. Let me just hear.
As well. I had dinner with them, and actually Elvis did too.
And it's a funny one for me, because I know that... No, I'm not going to play that because I can't play the music. Let me just have a look, guys. We can't have any music because it all gets blocked. I think we've already played that. Let me just see if this is any good. I might have already played this. Hi guys, very interesting video here. Let me just have a look a minute. I don't want to play it if we've already done it. Nah, that's not it. Okay guys, I think that's going to be the end of the video. So guys, just a good rounded, quite a long live stream. Trying to understand Colonel Tom Parker and his relationship with Elvis and the people that knew him. I think we've been pretty thorough, haven't we, guys? So, do you know what I mean, guys? It's like, I'm not a big fan of Colonel Tom Parker. I'm glad that he never trashed Elvis. I'm glad that he never trashed Elvis. But, come on, guys. The fans are quite upset with Colonel Tom Parker. There's many things the fans are unhappy with Colonel Tom Parker. I will never accept that Colonel Tom Parker is the reason that Elvis became so successful, became so famous. I would never accept that if Elvis hadn't have met Colonel Tom Parker, that he wouldn't have become famous. That's just bullshit. That's just bullshit. Now, Colonel Tom Parker did make a lot of mistakes, didn't he? But Colonel Tom Parker made a lot of mistakes. Anyway, guys, time for bed. Thanks everyone for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. I thought it was good. If you like what I do, get us a coffee, send us a super thank you. Become a member, guys. It's only $1 to be a member. I'm trying to get the membership up. So